Hey, comrades. We're on to Chapter 9 of Nikke, Goddess of Victory, the main story. It's entitled Secret. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and we begin with Shifty and Exia continuing to lead us towards this munitions factory. Exia spending a lot of time teaching Shifty how to do things so that she can improve and having her do stuff and critiquing her and stuff. And eventually we arrive at the munitions factory. For a little bit, while Shifty and Exia are like not paying attention or not like focused on us, the girls, the counters, talk about how Rappy is pretending that she hasn't been reset and that she's hiding it. She's finding it harder and harder to hide it from Shifty because Exia already knows. She figured it out. Anyway, inside we find a bunch of big equipment and stuff. And we find a huge scanner, so we were able to place the bullet on it, and Exia begins to scan. At that point, ruptures come in, the counters fight and defend the scanner, and then by the time the battle's over, Exia has identified that it is a completely normal bullet. Wah, wah, wah. Except it has Vapus. What is that? Nobody knows. How did Exia get that name? No idea. I guess the scanner told her. So Exia at that point is like, I need to try to figure that out. And the rest of you can go ahead and head back. After some time, Exia mentions like, hey, no matter what, I can't find anything. I'm going to have to hack into the central government. But that's not safe, as in like super illegal. And if they catch her doing it, that's going to be like the end of Exia. But she's, as much as we try to talk her to doing it, she's like, no. Shifty starts freaking out and then asks how she can help. And Ainz is like, turn away and pretend like you don't see anything because you're like, you work for you're like a member of the central government or whatever. At some point during the hack, Exia is like, hey, I got caught. She doesn't seem very concerned about it at all, but she's like, yeah, Triangle's on their way over here. I'm going to have to fry my brain so they don't get this information and find out about, you know what, which is Rappy. And we're like, no, Exia, don't do it. And then we hear the door burst open on this like message we're in, and Triangle comes bursting in and shoots her dead. So Triangle, we'll talk about next week when I do the next event story. But they're like kind of the long arm of the law, or they're like the military force of the ARC, but they're like militarized police kind of situation. Anyway, and at that point we hear them being like, hey, there's a communication line open, so we close it real quick, and then it's like super quiet. At that point, Shifty's like, we should get back, and we start to hurry back. At some point on our way back, we run into a minefield, and Shifty starts scanning it, but she's not finding it. She's like scanning it to give us like a route through the minefield and all this stuff. But then Neon activates a mine and boom! She's laying on the ground screaming that she can't feel her leg or something. I can't feel anything. And then Rappy finally calms her down. She's like, hey, you're fine. Nothing happened. It was a very small mine. Your body just like bulked up or like hardened up so that to protect you. And then Shifty starts apologizing and saying that the mine was too small. She wasn't able to pick it up. But because of the explosion, the Raptors start rushing in. And so Ainz and Rappy have to fight to protect Neon and us. Afterwards, we move forward, and then we almost stumble into like a Lord class rapture. And Ainz is like had enough. She calls out Shifty and starts screaming at her, because like that's the whole point, the whole job of like being an operator is to like scan ahead and be able to do this stuff. And then it gets quiet, and Rappy's like, "Who are you? Like who are you really?" Because dun dun dun, it's not Shifty, it's Sayun. The fuck? It's been Sayun this whole time. In fact, it's been Sayun for the past month. Because Shifty's been gone on training. And what the fuck is Sayun doing pretending to be Shifty? She's some like super advanced deep fake to do it. And the reason why is because she wants revenge. Revenge because we embarrassed her or something. So we get some arguments back and forth with her. And then she admits that she called the central government at Exia and reported her. And that she doesn't know what we spoke to Exia about in terms of Rappy, but that she knows it was some shady shit. She then she deploys like a homing target on us using whatever like futuristic tech magic they got. And so Raptors rush in to attack us, and Ainz and Rappy and Neon start fighting them and Ainz threatens Sayun. After defeating the enemy, Sayun taunts us some more and then heads off. She's like, all right, adios, bitches. I'm going to go research what this Vapus thing is. So we continue to hurry on back without an operator this time. And as soon as we arrive, we're accosted by a Triangle, like as soon as we get off the elevator. And we go back and forth with them. We had no authorization to go. We don't need the fucking authorization. Whereas, where'd you go? What's going on? And eventually we get them to leave. And at some point, Privity mentions that her and Rappy have some sort of competition. And that Privity is... And, she starts talking shit, and Rappy's just, like, staring at her blankly, and Adby's like, hey, Rappy had her memory erased. She doesn't remember any of your shit. And then Privity's like, oh, even better. That way I can taunt you more because I've won the majority of the competition, and blah, blah, blah. And then Eula, who's the head of the squad, is like, wait, it's the other way around. And then Private is like, I gotta go. So they all take off. And we're super concerned, and we want to check on Exia, and we also want to speak to Anderson. So first we go to Anderson, and he confirms that Exia is dead. And then also, that Sayun has stopped anyone from being able to look up anything about Bapis. We feign that we don't know anything about Exia or this Bapis thing, and he like gives us like a sidelong look and dismisses us. Back at the outpost, Ainz is talking about assaulting Sayun at Misla's headquarters. And Rappy's like, calm the fuck down, Ainz. We're not going to assault Misla's headquarters. Novel then shows up. As you remember from the video a couple weeks ago, or from maybe last week even, or two, I think it was 3 weeks ago. Anyway, Novel is another member of Protocol. And she does like all the kind of like non-electronic information gathering, collecting, and discovery for Einik. Exia does all the digital stuff. Anyway, Novel shows us some messages from Exia. It's encrypted and she doesn't exactly know how to solve it. So she explains that if we can just decipher the message that Exia sent us, we'll be able to figure it out. And she goes off for a little bit more, and Ainz is like, all right, move it along, detective. And Novel's like, you're so mean, Ainz, which is true. Anyway, so finally she ends up decrypting the message. It says, Vapis destroys the nanomachines that make Nikke's immortal. And the girls are like, what's a fucking nanomachine? And I'm like, bro, it is like the super future. Like, what? You don't know what a nanomachine is? But none of them apparently know what it is. And so once you finish that, Novel's like, you know what, let's go ask Exia about it. And then Rappy's like, oh, sweetie, oh, honey, something about Exia. And Novel's like, what? She's coming out of the hospital. I just like talked to her like 5 minutes ago. And we're like, what? And then she's like, yeah, let's go. And we're like, what? And so we go. And there she is. And Exia's like, hey, what's up? And it's like, we thought you were dead. And she's like, oh, yeah, I think I fried my brain. It's like, what? And so then we get like a very complicated, long explanation. So essentially, she started to incinerate her brain, but then she was shot, which stopped the incineration process. So the whole thing wasn't destroyed. And then her backup reset her memory to like a previous time, but now she's fine. And then we're like, but wait, you were hacking into the central government system. Why would you not let her live? And she was like, because we're protocol. We're too important to the ARC. We handle all the information, and we assist Einik, who's the AI that runs the ARC. And then about that backup, the backup is the nanomachines. It's the NIMP. NIMP stands for Neuro-Implanted Machine for the Protection of Humans. And it is what gives the Nikkes like their immortality, essentially. It's like the nanomachines inside the brain that keep the brain functional and working and take care of all the stuff so that the brain can like live forever, essentially. And it also allows the Nikke's mind to be wiped because the NIMP stores, it's like a continuous storage backup of like the entire brain. And so when they can do the mind reset or wipe, it just restores everything to like a certain time period. And it can also delete everything as well. So Vapis, whatever it is, it destroys the NIMP, which destroys all the nanomachines, meaning so memory wipes will not work, like on Rappy. So she clearly doesn't have a NIMP for some reason. And then we discuss nanomachines in relation to, that's what healed Chatterbox. And then what about heretics? Next is like, I don't know. There's no information on heretics, but it could be somewhat related to what's going on with them as well. And then during this conversation, we talk about like, well, is there any who has information about the heretics? And Exia is like, well, Mattis and Absolute have fought heretics, so they might have some information. And at that point, Rappy's like, all right, we need allies. We can't just keep doing this. We need to talk to Elysion's Ingrid and Anderson. We then go back and forth discussing about this, and we decide that, yeah, we got to tell them everything about Rappy, about everything that's going on, about Vapis, so that because we need assistance. Like, we can't just do this on our own. So we call a meeting with Ingrid and Anderson, and we tell them everything. And they're very skeptical at first, but then Rappy reveals that she's not been memory wiped. And Anderson's like, that's bullshit. And Ingrid's like, no, I trust her. Rappy, I didn't raise her to lie to me. Thanks, Mom. Rappy says something else, too, that like Ingrid's like, oh, okay, yeah, 100%. You did not get memory wiped. She also starts talking about, Rappy starts talking about Vapis and Nymph. And then she's like, hey, if you need to, you can take my brain and study it. But we're trying to find out more information about heretics and what this Vapis thing is and all this stuff. So they're not going to do any experiments on her brain yet. But Ingrid does authorize Absolute, which is Vesti, Emma, and Yunhua. And they're going to lead us to Area H, where they battle the heretic, or where they're heretics. There is apparently a heretic. And then Anderson's like, that's off limits. There's no way that's going to prove it. And then Ingrid like rolls her eyes. And Anderson's like, all right, it's approved. So off we go, which ends chapter 9 in the main story. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys in a couple weeks. Bye.